"The devil is knocking at my door," was Devi Popoka's first thought when she first heard noises in her head. Was she going crazy? Was it the demons speaking to her from the depths of her being? Were those noises the demons of the underworld that her grandfather had always told her about? All these questions were going around in the mind of little Devi, who at only 10 years old found herself involved in a mystery worthy of a Stephen King novel and whose outcome would leave everyone with their mouths wide open. Devi Popoka's life was as normal as you would expect from a 10-year-old girl born and raised in New Delhi and belonging to a traditional middle-class family in India. Her main concern was to have fun, preferably outdoors and surrounded by all the animals she could find, to study and get good grades in school, something she had been doing for as long as she could remember and achieved with little effort, and to play chess. Yes, you heard right, play chess and win every game. Something she also did without too much effort, to be honest. That's right. Devi was a mix between a knowledge-loving, intellectual girl, always willing to surpass herself, and a descendant of Indiana Jones himself, a lover of adventure and wild animals. Her family did not understand how the same person could have such opposite interests, but knowing Devi, everything seemed possible, and they decided not to oppose any desire she had, no matter how strange it might be or the possible gossip it might arouse among neighbors or acquaintances of the family. You should limit her leisure time and keep a closer eye on her friendships. That modern school you have enrolled her in is full of foreigners. It doesn't seem to me the best company for a girl from a good family like my granddaughter. Devi's grandfather reproached her parents every time he had the opportunity, feeling like the last monkey in the family, and against almost all the decisions that the girl's parents had taken regarding the education of their only daughter. Being the only daughter of a married couple in India was not an easy task, but if you happened to be too liberal and wanted to have your own ideas, life became quite complicated. But that never bothered Devi in the least. She was determined to become a chess star, and at the same time go around the world with her camera to photograph the most spectacular wild animals in existence. So when Devi asked her parents to join a scout club and spend the whole weekend camping in the northern mountains, no one was surprised, and they decided to let her attend and have fun while she could. When you're older, you'll have to really decide what you want to be, Devi. An adventurer who travels the world alone, or a traditional Indian woman who respects her family and religion. Now go and have fun. There is still a long time left for you to be just a child, her mother told her, with a face full of sorrow, for the worry of separating from her daughter and letting her sleep in the middle of the mountain. An excursion that Devi had been looking forward to for more than a month, and for which she had prepared thoroughly. "I'm not afraid of anything. With the camping equipment I bought and my knowledge, nothing bad will happen to you. Trust me," Devi told her best friend and fellow adventurer Arya a few days before the excursion to reassure her. What our brave explorer could not have imagined was that after that excursion, her life would change completely, to the point of fearing for her life and mental health. What events on the mountain transformed Devi from a cheerful and intelligent 10-year-old girl into a paranoid shadow of herself, afraid to even go outside? The answer will leave you open-mouthed and will make all the hair on your body stand on end. The mountain excursion lasted 2 days and 2 nights, as planned. Devi had never felt happier or freer than during those 2 days, exploring the wild nature of India and photographing truly amazing animals that she had never been able to see from so close before. The excursion was a resounding success. There was no compilation, no major incident during the 2 days they spent exploring one of the wildest and most inhospitable areas of the country. Or at least that's what everyone believed. Complications would come later, specifically 2 months later. After spending a summer full of adventures and making the most of her last few days of outdoor freedom playing, Devi was due to return to school and resume her chess club training to prepare for the upcoming state championships in early fall. Popoka had won the last 3 championships in a row with barely a flutter, and while she wanted to continue to enjoy the outdoors and learn more about the secrets that awaited in the wilds of her country, she was also eager to continue her education and continue to better herself with every game of chess she played. The return to routine felt good. She missed her classes, her classmates, and even her teachers, with whom Devi had forged a very good relationship based on mutual respect between both parties. Her training at the chess club was also a success, and after 2 months of winning each and every game she played at the club and local championships, Devi felt fully prepared to revalidate her title of state champion and then aim even higher, to take part in the national championships for the first time and face the best chess players in the country. Only if you beat the best, you can become the best, she proudly repeated to her father every time he told her that she was a chess prodigy and that she should dedicate herself to it professionally. However, the night before the big state championship, Devi sensed something was wrong. Very wrong. She didn't know exactly what it was, nor could she explain what was happening to her, but she knew quickly that something very bad was happening. While sleeping, Devi felt something scratching her pillow. The girl woke up very scared in the middle of the night. She turned on the light on her bedside table to see what creature had snuck into her bed and was tearing her sheets apart, but was very surprised to find that there was nothing there. How strange. I could have sworn I heard the noise right next to my face. Maybe I dreamt it. Sometimes it happens, she said to herself, and climbed back into bed, resigned, and trying to forget the strange sound she had thought she heard. That night, she managed to go back to sleep and did not hear any more noise. However, the next day, the noise returned with greater intensity. The problem is that it did so while she was facing her best rival and in front of hundreds of people. Devi had killed all the pawns, king and pawns of her biggest rival since she was 5 years old, Samira Kariak. She was about to make her master move and put Samira's queen in check when suddenly she heard it again with total clarity. The noise had returned, and this time she was sure that it was not an animal trying to scratch her sheets. It was inside her head. Devi gasped and instinctively covered her ears. Her opponent and everyone there watching the game looked at her quizzically. "What's wrong, honey? Are you all right?" asked her father, very concerned about his daughter's strange behavior. Devi managed to momentarily get that unpleasant sound out of her head and come back to reality to answer him and pretend that everything was fine. "Everything is fine, Dad. I must have a little ear infection, that's all. We can go on now," lied Devi, trying her best not to scream, while she felt how the noise in her head was increasing. Popoka managed to finish the game successfully and win the rest of the games until the final without too many complications. However, every minute that passed, she felt more stressed, and that mysterious noise that had begun to resonate inside her was going to end up driving her crazy. While waiting for the time to play again, Devi tried everything she could think of to make the noise stop. Holding her breath, doing somersaults, drinking almost a liter of water without stopping, and even running around and around the enclosure. But nothing could make the sound go away. "Can you tell me what's wrong with you? Why are you acting so strange? I've never seen you like this, Devi. Does something hurt you?" her father asked her again before the final. "I'm just nervous, Dad. That's all. Exercising relaxes me," she lied again, although each time her lies were less convincing, and the girl looked worse. The chess championship final started an hour later, and while Devi concentrated on studying her opponent's moves and thinking about what would be her next move to win, the noise in her head was increasing. Every movement she made on the board was a real martyrdom. Devi began to feel dizzy, and the stress that this noise was producing had caused her to start sweating non-stop and breathing with difficulty, until a moment came when she couldn't take it anymore. "Silence!" she exclaimed, getting up from her chair and running out of the room and away from everyone's gaze. Devi ran out of there as fast as she could and burst into tears as soon as she found a quiet place where she was sure no one would see her. Everyone who was watching the final was perplexed, not knowing what to do. The audience and the members of the jury looked at her as if she had really gone crazy, and when she disappeared through the back door, everyone was silent, hesitating whether to comment on what happened or wait for Devi to come back and tell them that it was a joke. But Devi had no intention of going back there, and it was no joke either. Of course, her father followed her and soon arrived at her side to find out what was happening to her. "Devi, honey, what's wrong with you? Please tell me what is happening to you. Don't cry, my love. Please, explain it to me," her father begged her, very anguished. Devi could not stop crying, in the same way that she could not get that noise in her head to silence. She had no other choice. She had to tell her father what was happening to her, although she already knew what would happen next. "Dad, what would you think if I told you that I hear voices in my head?" Devi asked in tears. Mr. Popoka's reaction was so predictable that Devi regretted a minute later having been honest with her father. As soon as she told her father that she had started hearing noises in her head, Devi's life as she knew it was over forever. "She is cursed, I knew it. It's our fault, for having brought her up in such a liberal and modern way. Now the spirits are punishing her, and soon they will come for us," Devi's father shouted to his wife that night. The whole family felt that a great curse had befallen them and took Devi to the best healers in the country to try to cure her. Devi, of course, refused to go to any of those things, but she was only 10 years old, and her opinion ceased to matter from the moment she ran out of the chess championship final like a madwoman and claimed that there were voices in her head that would not leave her alone. For weeks, Devi traveled the country looking for a miraculous solution to the curse that was causing her to hear voices in her head, and that, according to her family, would end up bringing misfortune to all the Popoka. But no one seemed to find the answer they were looking for, and the noise in her head never quite silenced. But Devi's problems had only just begun. After a month of listening to that mysterious sound in her head, Devi began to experience other, even more troubling symptoms that could only be caused by the curse she kept inside her. Headaches so persistent that in order to sleep, she had to resort to the strongest medication, constant nausea and dizziness that forced her to spend long periods of time in bed without daring to take a step. "It's as if the devil had chosen me to try all his methods of punishment. There are days when I would rather die, Mom. It's horrible, and I feel very guilty for making you suffer this way," she confessed to her mother, one particularly difficult night when nausea and headache did not allow her to sleep. "We will find a way to cure you, my love. Don't worry about us. We will always be by your side. Don't ever doubt it," her mother assured her helplessly. But the truth was that no one seemed to know how to work the miracle that would free Devi from her curse and her family from the same fate. The weeks continued to pass, and the voices Devi heard in her head became more and more persistent, as did her headaches and dizziness. Any other family would have chosen to take their daughter to the hospital with those symptoms, but Devi's parents were very conservative and avoided going to the doctor as much as possible. According to them, traditional Indian medicine had everything necessary to heal a person, and the modern medicine they practiced in hospitals was a poison that only made people sick from anything, and they died without explanation. Of course, Devi never agreed with her parents and had always thought that the real poison was to keep thinking that medicine was against the general welfare, but she could do little to convince her parents otherwise. She seemed to be doomed, just as her father repeated to her daily, and she had already assumed that she would never stop hearing that noise ringing in her ears. Until the inevitable happened, and luck once again sided with her, albeit in a somewhat contradictory way. One morning, the headache was so intense that it caused Devi to eventually lose consciousness while on her way to her room after breakfast. Her parents found her unconscious on the kitchen floor, and after an initial moment of panic in which they tried unsuccessfully to resuscitate their daughter, they called the emergency services to attend to their daughter and take her to the hospital as soon as possible. Save her, please. She is cursed. We don't know what to do anymore. Maybe in that place you call hospital, you can find the cause for this strange curse that has taken away my dear daughter's joy," said Devi's father to the paramedics who came to his house to take care of his daughter. No one dared to answer him, and they just put Devi in the ambulance and assured him that they would take care of her and do everything possible to cure her. But the real surprise would come a few hours after Devi was admitted to Nova Delhi General Hospital. Seeing that the girl was still unresponsive to the medication she had been given and still unconscious, and after asking the family what symptoms the girl had been experiencing lately before fainting and slipping into a coma, the doctors suggested the need for further tests to find the source of her illness. "We must perform a complete CAT scan on your daughter if we want to know what is causing all these symptoms, Mr. Popoka. I perfectly understand your position and animosity towards the use of modern technology to cure people. But I assure you that your daughter will not suffer any harm, and that thanks to this test, we could find out how to cure her once and for all. I am not a big fan of curses. They seem to me to be superstitions of grandparents, but I respect that. I ask you to do the same with my work," said the doctor to Devi's father, after the man's negative reaction to the idea of doing more invasive medical tests on his daughter. "Go ahead. Do whatever it takes to save my little girl. That's all I ask of you," finally accepted Mr. Popoka, who was desperate to cure his daughter and see her smile again. What the doctors discovered in Devi's CT scan left them speechless. Inside Devi's ear, they discovered that there were up to 4 little spiders. But that was not the worst of it, because the spiders had been living in the girl's ear conductor for so long that they had woven their own spider web, which was so big that it was starting to reach the nerve endings of the brain. They had never seen anything like this before and could not understand how such a thing could have happened. The doctors were horrified at the thought of the horror that the 10-year-old girl must have endured having those spiders inside her for so long. She should have been brought to the hospital as soon as she started having the first symptoms. You have taken a great risk by not letting any doctor check her. They could have prevented her health from deteriorating to the point of going into a coma. I am sorry to be so harsh, but right now your daughter is not out of danger. We must intervene, and it will not be easy. In my 35 years as a doctor, I have never faced anything like this before, and with such a young child, the risks are even greater. Now we can only pray." The doctor was really indignant with Devi's parents and scared because he did not know what was going to happen on the operating table. The doctors were very clear with Devi's parents. The spider web that had begun to invade her brain was affecting a very delicate area of the brain. Moreover, considering that the spiders were still alive, they would also have to be very careful not to harm the girl by removing them from the auditory cavity where they had been installed for more than a month. It was a long and anxious night. The operation lasted more than 6 hours, and Devi's family gathered at the doors of the hospital to pray for the girl and her healing. Fortunately, everything went well, and the doctors who operated on Devi had very good news regarding the girl's health and her recovery process. "Your daughter will recover. We don't know how long it will take for her to wake up, but we are sure that she will, and that her brain will not have suffered any permanent damage. It is possible that she may suffer from amnesia and be disoriented for a few days, but those symptoms should disappear quickly, and Devi will be able to return to normal life as before," announced smiling the doctor who had operated on her and successfully removed the spider's web that lived in her head. A week later, Devi woke up and learned the real reason for the curse she had suffered in recent weeks. The girl was very happy to learn that she was not cursed, but especially to find out that the noises she heard in her head were not a hallucination and that she had never had any mental problems. "Then will I be able to play chess again?" was the first thing the girl asked when she learned that she was completely cured. The only side effect those spiders had caused in Devi, apart from the deep disgust she felt knowing she lived with those creatures for so long, was her sudden desire to spend more time indoors. The girl decided to take a break from her adventures as a Girl Scout and devote more time to chess and her studies. A completely understandable decision under the circumstances. Devi Popaka went back to being the giggly, smart, and funny girl she had always been, but her ordeal had helped her parents to be more sympathetic to her and also to put aside their prejudices about modern medicine and begin to accept that a doctor had saved their daughter's life, while they had put it at risk. A great lesson of love and understanding that reminds us how important it is to maintain a healthy relationship with our family members and to share with them our concerns, no matter how strange and noisy they may be. Do you like this touching and surprising story? If so, we invite you to leave us a comment expressing your opinion. If you want to continue enjoying inspiring stories like this one, subscribe to our channel or check out the other videos shown at the bottom of the screen. Thank you for your cooperation.